Greetings, greetings, family. We are live. Welcome, welcome to the Sister Shanice Show. I am absolutely delighted to have you in the house. Just going to create a link that we can share. And I'd like you also to share the link with family and friends. So welcome to another edition, another episode of the Sister Shanice Show. And as you can see in the background, that way, yes, our guest for this evening is none other than Leader Bandaka, spiritual leader of the Al-Kabalan revivalist movement. And he is in the waiting room just rearing to go and ready to come live, family. So it's going to be a blast. It's going to be, as always, a deeply informative conversation that we're going to be having with you, our wonderful, wonderful audience. So spread the word. We are live. Welcome. I welcome you. Our speaker is going to be coming on soon. Our audience is coming through the door and joining us. We welcome you as you come. Please do share the link. If you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. We welcome you to join the Sister Shanice Show family. And if you're not a Patreon as yet, you can actually support the works of the Sister Shanice Show via Patreon. Just go to Patreon and search for Sister Shanice, and there you can actually support the movement for as little as £3 a month. I want to welcome the Galaxy Afiwi family as well, GalaxyAfiwi.net family. We welcome you. We welcome all of the revivalist, Al-Kabalan revivalist movement family that's watching us right now. The global family, we welcome you. Friends, frenemy, all of you, we welcome you. So just before we go into the show, I just want to remind you of a couple of the guests that we have recently had on the show and whose videos you can visit on this channel, and also the guests that we've got coming up. So yeah, if you go back last month, we had Franklin Jones, absolutely phenomenal speaker, talking about the psychological warfare that's been waged against us as a people. Check out his video. It is transformational information and knowledge. Take the information, dissect it, put it in PowerPoint presentations, deliver it to your young people in your schools, colleges, universities, in your youth clubs, in your family settings, your community settings. It's transformational information. You know, as Steve Biko said, you know, I can never remember these quotes exactly, but something along the lines of, you know, the greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And let me tell you this, family, you see, anytime we as a people are in our right mind, it's all over. We will all know exactly what needs to be done. So check out the works of Franklin Jones. Check out the panel discussion and debates that we've been having in the works of Dr. Winters. You know, Dr. Winters, he is a historian, a linguist, an anthropologist, you know, an educator, and so much more. And he has been bringing us knowledge and information about the first people of Europe and the first people of Britain, who were, incidentally, Africans, in case you didn't know. And he's bringing the evidence, and it's there in his presentation. So go to his presentations and, you know, don't believe a word he says. If you don't want to, do the research for yourself. And if you dig deep enough, you will find the evidence. Check out our brother Leo Muhammad. Check out our previous shows with Leader Bandaka. Phenomenal work. Check out also, family, the video with Professor Kaba. Oh my days, you know, the special guest and educationalist on the whole series of Hidden Color shows. He was a guest here on the Sister Shanice Show. Check out his video as well. Also, check out the video of Dr. Reverend Shock Philip. He is going to be coming back as well in a couple of strongs time. And next Monday, because you know I do a Monday show as well now, 10 p.m. UK time on a Monday. I've been doing a few of those, been going really, really well. Thank you so much for the support. This coming Monday, we have Black Rasta in the house, artists all the way from the continent. and he's phenomenal. He uses the reggae culture to put across some powerful, powerful messages to our people. And we've also got Dr. Marie Charles coming up as well on the 22nd of June. And so, you know, great lineup for tonight and for the coming future as well. So please do put the word out, tell the family, tell the friends to log in to the Sister Shanice show, where it is always an honor and a privilege to have you, our wonderful, wonderful audience, join us. Okay, I know my special guest is backstage. He's getting ready to come forward. So let me just greet you in the audience to give him just a minute or two more. Remember, as you come through the door, family, please do hit me up in the chat. Let me know that you're there. Just say hi, you know, just say greetings, you know, just say big up, you know, just let us know that you're there. Also, please do give us a thumbs up as well as you come through the door. Copy the link and share it in your WhatsApp groups, your family WhatsApp groups, and your other networks. I would so appreciate that. So yes, we've got Sister Afri Jabo in the house, sending greetings all the way from Ghana. Big up yourself, Sister Afri Jabo. As always, a privilege and an honor to have you in the house, one of our regular audience participants. Enough love, Black out there to you, my sis. Also the Sheriffess, oh, enough love to you as well. Becoming a regular guest here. We love you, Sheriffess, saying blessed love, Sister Shanice, and greetings from the UKKK. And we big up Kimani, a regular visitor in the house. 100% love, Black at you, my brother. And sending enough love to the family in the house as well. Tag 5104, yes, a regular contributor in the chat. Enough love to you. Papa Cheesy, all the way from the Bahamas. Enough love to you as well. Say, yes, we are at war. Rise up, melanated families across the diaspora. We have great scholars and professors that are keeping it real. For real, to all of our scholars, to all of those who are out there doing the works, the educationalists, those of you who are spending countless hours doing the research, preparing for shows, preparing for lectures and presentations to raise awareness to us as a people about what really are going on out there and the time of day that it is. You know, we thank you for the groundbreaking, revolutionary works that you're doing, because we need change. We need change. Big up, Tuka Pamoja. I love that name, Tuka Pamoja. Enough love to you, family member. S.A. Smith, enough love to you. Gebra, enough voodoo, Black at you. Papa Cheesy, enough love. Didi, enough love. Greetings. Thanks for letting us know that you're in the house. Let me just check that our keynote speaker for tonight is actually ready to come forward. Let me just admit him from backstage and greet our spiritual leader of the Al-Qaeda Revivalist movement as he comes to join us. Yes, he should be ready to join us very soon. When you're ready, leader, just put on your camera. Okay, yes, there you can see our leader getting ready to come forward to join us this evening. Let's do an audio check. Greetings, leader.
Tenai greetings, my sister.
Yes, coming through loud and clear. How are you doing?
I am richly blessed and giving thanks and praises as always, beloved sister, and great to the blessing for being on your program this evening. Tendai Mwari.
We are honored. Tendai Mwari. And how's your beautiful family? Sister Kai, the children, the grandchildren?
Oh, they are a supreme blessing in my life, as you know, my beloved sister. They are well. We give thanks and praises for all mercies, great and small.
Ashe, Tendai Mwari. They do a great job. You know, keeping you, available for your community to do the works. We so appreciate that. You know, we don't take it for granted the time that you take away from your beloved family to share your knowledge and your wisdom with us. And, when you do, we are always coming away just so much more enriched and so much more knowledgeable and get a deeper insight into whatever it is that you bring our way. So We are truly, truly honored and
Oh,
privileged to have you, my brother.
I trust that your king and the rest of your family are in splendid health and spirit, my sister.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much for asking. Yes. Thank you so much. And I've just been welcoming the audience as they've been coming through the door, you know, delighted to see the family coming to join us. I'm asking you again, those of you in the chat, please do copy the link and send it out, family, to everybody in your social network. I'm going to be doing the same as well. As you know, we've got to do the works to get the message and the information out there to our family, our loved ones, and our friends. We can't expect others to be doing it for us. Brother Leader Bandaka, as always, you know, there's so much going on in the world today. I wonder if there are any, I've got a couple of topics that I'd love to get your perspective on, but, you know, before I drop those ones, it may also be your opening remarks. I wonder if you can greet the audience, just introduce yourself to the audience, and maybe just highlight a particular current affair that you want to bring to our attention. And in the background, I'll be posting our links. Welcome, welcome.
As always, I bring greetings in the most precious, powerful and bountiful name of our motherland, Al-Kebula and Mama Africa, in the sacred spirits of our most gracious ancestors, and in a prayer for oneness, hope, and prosperity for all African people upon the face of Mother Earth. Rumbidzo Kunamwari Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory, giving thanks and praises for this opportunity to render ideas and thoughts and analysis as we address the most important people on the planet, the sons and daughters of Africa, the royal elders, queens and kings and princes and princesses of great Mama Africa. So I bring greetings, I bring blessings to you all, and I give thanks and praises to the Creator through Muzimu Mukuru, our great ancestors, for our blessed sister Shanice, and the wonderful work that she has been doing, keeping our African world community alive to our own reality, our own worldview, reinforcing the importance of defining time and space and circumstances for ourselves, defining our own worldview as a people. Amongst the issues that are utmost in my mind, my sister, is this present disgraceful situation where a country in Africa named Rwanda has signed up to a deal with the British government to allow them to offload what they consider to be the excesses in terms of their asylum seekers. That this big, massive country compared to Rwanda, Britain, is 94,000 square miles, whereas Rwanda is 10,000 square miles. Britain has a population of nearly 70 million, whereas Rwanda has a population of 13 million. And you hear British people, including members of the political class, lamenting the impact and the pressure it would put on British society and its institutions to have all of these refugees coming into the country, but yet they want to offload them on a small country like Rwanda, which is still in many ways still trying to find its feet. Whatever criticisms or concerns we may have of the present regime that runs the country is still trying to find its footing. And to offload these refugees from all over different parts of the world It could be Afghanistan. It could be Syria. It could be Arabs from Libya. It could be Iraqis converging in their tens of thousands on a small African country that has a very high poverty rate must be a matter of serious concern for all African people. But as I say to people all the time, what we're seeing unfolding where Rwanda is concerned is more than just an agreement between two countries, two sovereign nations. It is about one country dominating another, having neo-colonial control over another country. That's what we're dealing with here. The British government and the American government props up the economy of Rwanda and therefore has reduced Rwanda to being an object of its manipulation. And that's what we're seeing unfolding here. So without going into any further detail, my sister, I just want to put that out there. I think it's something that we as African people should rage against. It is not in the interest of our people in Rwanda. We don't know what kind of energies these people are coming with. These people with their demeaning notions and concepts of Africa and African people and our traditions. They call us all kinds of unpleasant names like kaffers, and as if we have no soul as a people. They have no respect for our culture. They have no respect for our spirituality. We don't know what excesses our people in Rwanda are going to be exposed to, and we should be very concerned. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, absolutely agree with you on all of what you said, Leader Bandaka. And, I will add, to that as well, if you don't mind, about the hypocrisy of the British government. On the one hand, throwing their doors wide open to Ukrainian refugees to come in. They've introduced policies whereby these Ukrainian refugees can get homes, where they found a budget amounting to millions, so they can provide £300+ to every household that brings in a Ukrainian refugee. They've offered job opportunities, public funds, resources, help. The help and support for an unlimited number of Ukrainian refugees has been made available by the British government, whilst on the other hand, throwing out people of color. It is such hypocrisy and blatant racial discrimination.
Absolutely.
As well.
But you missed out the most important element, my sister.
Did I? Tell me, my brother.
No vaccine mandate.
Hey, vaccine disappear. When
no vaccine mandate.
Start. For real. Then can just come true.
Just come true. No PCR test.
No, nothing. In fact, such was the double standards and the outcry as a result of the double standards. They must have dropped that for everybody.
Absolutely.
What does that say about the whole scam? We don't know, but we don't want the show to, get
word sound.
So, which reminds me, let me record so that I've got a backup. So yes, we hear you on that, and I want to rise up all of the protesters who have been protesting against the Rwanda deportations, those who have successfully stopped the first flight from going through. I want to rise up all of those who have been signing petitions against it. Your voices count, and
absolutely.
Yeah, your condemnation of this gets heard. So fantastic. Also, my brother, you're probably aware of the abuse that the Maasai people in Kenya have been facing recently. It's been reported in the news that the government has decided to take the land, the indigenous land belonging to the Maasai people, because they want to give it to white people with money to use it for gaming, so that they can slaughter and kill animals for sport and for fun. And there is a lot of footage on social media right now that has been captured of the Maasai people peacefully demonstrating and their own Kenyan soldiers shooting after them and wounding some of the Maasai people. I don't know if you've seen that, and if you have any comments on that, my brother, and a message for the Kenyan government about their position on this.
You know, once again, it's another piece of egregious occurrence on the African continent. You know, in an African nation that has a regime in place that is clearly not a government of our people. You know, as much as they may now want to pretend or present themselves as being Pan-Africanists, as having some form of Pan-African vision, it is clear that our values, it is clear that our self-worth is of such a low standing that we are still worshiping and prioritizing the needs of Europeans. We're still placing European interest over our own. But it's not surprising when we think about when Kenya became independent, that the constitution that was drafted protected the land rights of the white mass murderers who were left in Kenya. It was enshrined in the country's new independent constitution that the land that these people claim to own would be secured and preserved, and that there would not be a redistribution of land. That is enshrined in the Kenyan constitution. It was a sellout by the father of the present president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. His father is Jomo Kenyatta. And he sold our people out at the dawning of independence. And so it is enshrined in the constitution that white land ownership in Kenya is sacred. That's what this is about. White land ownership, white land control in Kenya is a sacred matter. And the government is clearly prepared to unleash the machinery of the state against our people in the interest, or to protect the interest, the land interest of white people. It is an utter disgrace, my sister. It is an utter disgrace, and one which really should jolt us again into that position of realizing that our fight is a very serious fight, beloved brothers and sisters, and the need for us to unite and to empower ourselves through that unity, to build powerful national and international institutions so that we can represent and defend our interests and promote our interests from a position of power, and defend the interests of our people in various parts of the world from a position of power. If we don't organize for power, everywhere we find ourselves, my beloved sister, beloved brothers and sisters, then we're going to continue to hear these disgraceful, despicable accounts of abuse of African humanity at the hands of African regimes controlled by foreign powers. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, brother leader, it's just, heart-wrenching to know that during these days, during these times, a nation of people, indigenous people such as the Maasai tribe,
Yeah.
You know, they want to take them off their own land, like you say, so that they can appease, you know, foreigners. Does any African think for 1 minute that Britain would give even a fraction of its land over to any African national so that they can, you know, have control of it for their entertainment purposes?
Absolutely. Just turn that around, my sister. Just imagine the British government, British army, the British police shooting at white people.
At their own people.
To get them off land so we Africans can build our shrines, you know, and build what our ipetisut, so we can express our spirituality.
It would just never happen.
It would never in a million years.
Never happen. Them quick thing run we off of them land. Then quick thing deport us out of them country.
The gun will be directed to us.
Yes.
Against us.
Yes.
That's where the gun will be directed.
That's right. You know, but guns, because
those guns should be protecting. This is why I say we don't have. Africa has no military defense. Africa has no military defense.
It's a crazy situation. You know, I dropped this on my show earlier today, Brother Leader. Just want to quickly share.
Go ahead.
Because it was said on our show earlier today that, you know, we have no guns in our community. We can't protect ourselves, our nations, you know, our defenses. And I said, you know, we are very well armed as a people. You know, we have armies all over Africa. We have people in European armies, American armies, Canadian armies, but those people are not in their right mind. And here we have the Maasai protest and the shooting, you know, of their own army as proof that those soldiers are not in their right mind. I said, if we were in an inner circle as a people, and surrounding us was the African armies of the continent and of Europe, and our Black soldiers in Europe. And on the outside of the circle and the ring were all the Europeans. Who do you think the soldiers would be pointing the gun at? Those Black soldiers, who would they be pointing the guns at? They would, if they were in their right minds, they would be pointing the guns to the outsiders and ring on the outside. But because they're not in their right mind,
you see, this is why Baba Thomas Sankara, heal him. This is why he always said that a soldier without ideological training is nothing but a potential murderer.
Hey.
Right? Without that ideological training. And so all of his soldiers were subjected to ideological training. Baba Amilcar Cabral, he ensured that his soldiers, when they were not on the battlefield, were living amongst the ordinary people in the villages and had to work for the people, help them with their farming, help them build their houses, help them to repair their roads or whatever it is. The army had to go in. If you're not fighting, go in amongst the people and you work for the people. And the people feed you. So you build a relationship. The soldiers are building a relationship. And all of the soldiers that were under his command had to do a spell of that. You go into a village just to live amongst the people. The people feed you, you work for the people. So you're building a relationship. What he was doing was forging a bond between the citizenry and the protectors of the citizenry, so that the soldiers knew that you are armed and trained to protect these people.
Right.
It's a powerful thing. What happened to Thomas Sankara? What happened to Amilcar Cabral? Yeah. And that's not to say we must not rise up more Amilcar Cabrals and more Thomas Sankaras. So they know that when they know that they cannot kill that spirit. That spirit is in so many of us. You have to come with something else. Because once you kill one, it proliferates. That spirit proliferates amongst the masses. Yeah. Tendai
Mwari, you know, that we need to bring back that strategy and recognize the importance of that ideological training so that those armies know that their role is supposed to be to protect their citizens and not the interest of private sector business. The time is running and passing, and I know I'm going to get criticized for not giving you enough time to come before the people in the audience who are here, you know, to hear from you, my leader. So let me thank everybody for the comments in the chat. I will be bringing in your comments. I can see lots of comments coming in. Thank you so much. I will be bringing in your comments, but right now, let me make the stage available and make way for our guest speaker today, Brother Leader Bandaka. He has a presentation. He's going to share screen and come with that presentation very, very shortly. And we are going to be going in to the main segment of today's show. And as he prepares his presentation, let me just quickly go over to the chat because I've seen that you've been busy. Let me just quickly read this one that says, oh, here we go. We'll come back to your comments, family. Let's go over now to Leader Bandaka.
Tenai Mwari, giving thanks and praises unto Mwari Nyakusika, God, the creator of the universe, from Mukuru, our great ancestors, for blessing us with this moment, this opportunity. Beloved brothers and sisters, it's an honor to be addressing you this evening on the show of our oh so blessed and wonderful sister. I forever give praises and honor to Sister Shanice for the power of love that she has for her people.
Just a quick interjection there, my brother. Thank you so much for that. Thank you in the chat. It's Tanzania who are turning the army on the Maasai tribe, not Kenya. My apologies. It's Tanzania. We'll come back to that at the end of the show. My apologies. I just wanted to quickly get that in. Thank you, Brother Leader. Thank you.
Okay. So we just give thanks and give praise to the Creator for you and for your energies, for your work, for your discipline, as well as your diligence. I'm going to move forward. We have a lot to get through as usual, and I will try to do so with constructive haste so that we can get through and have questions or comments from brothers and sisters. Of course, the broad topic of the series I am blessed to be doing on Sister Shanice's show is Martyred Prophets, Celebrated Puppets, the Deadly Politricks of Africa. Martyred Prophets, Celebrated Puppets, the Deadly Politricks of Africa. And one of the reasons why I was moved to undertake this subject matter is because I consider the information to be absolutely vital for the raising of our people's consciousness, because too much important and vital information gets lost with time. And this is information that is supposed to be utmost in our minds as African people, as we try to understand the dynamics of the African continent, as we strive to forge a movement for our people's liberation. We must understand Africa, our motherland, the historical complexities of our motherland, the politrics of Africa, which bamboozles so many of us. I know, my beloved sister, and I humble myself as I bring this to the screen. I know you hate this term, and I do understand why. But let me just say again, when we talk about white supremacy, we are in no way suggesting or implying that white people are superior. Of course, white people are not superior to African people. We are the first people of the first land who brought the first culture and civilization to humanity and inspired the entire humanity in the development and the evolution of their own culture and civilization. But we contend as a movement that there is a system, a global system in place that is designed in all of its disciplines to produce outcomes that enable Europeans, white people, to reign and rule over African people. And so Neely Fuller and Mama Frances Cress Welsing, and I'm using this as a repeated backdrop to our subject matter. If you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it affects you, then everything else that you think you understand will only confuse you. The only form, and what they're saying is that white supremacy is at the core of racism. The fundamental underlying principle of racism, what we call racism, is white supremacy. And they contend that the only form of functional racism that exists amongst people of the known universe is white supremacy. White supremacy operates, they say, in all areas of people activity: economics, education, edutainment, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And that's Baba Neely Fuller, Mama Frances Cress Welsing. Moving on, beloved, the fundamental rule of global geopolitics. This is part of our backdrop as well, beloved brothers and sisters, is whoever controls Africa rules the world. Every African on the planet needs to know this. Whoever controls Africa rules the world. When Britain controlled Africa, Britain ruled the world. America controls Africa today, America rules the world. When Africans are in control of Africa again, Africans will rule the world. And we have to understand, brothers and sisters, in order to control Africa, you must conquer Africans. You must control Africans. You must oppress and exploit Africans in order to control Africa and rule the world. Otherwise, Africans will find themselves, Africans will control their motherland, and Africans will inevitably, and by the law of nature, rule the world. This is why they have to be so vicious against us. This evening, we're going to be focused on Nigeria. Now, the last time we looked at the Congo, and I ventured to suggest that next to Ghana, who led the African continent on the anti-colonial independence movement and became the first nation, the first African nation on the continent to become independent. They provided the leadership. The next most important nation that we needed to liberate was the Congo. And I want to suggest, because of the size, the abundance of the Congo's natural resources, the size of the Congo itself, and also its location in the center of the African continent, I want to suggest that Nigeria was the next one, or would have been, should have been the next one. Here we have Nigeria, some particulars. Official name, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Location is in West Africa. Its area, just so we have some working knowledge of Nigeria, its area is almost 360,000 square miles. It is the 14th largest, it is the most populous country on the African continent, and the 14th largest in the world. Sorry, the 32nd largest in the world. Its population is 216 million, the most populous country in Africa, 1/6 of the continent's population. So we can see here 1/6 of the continent's population. We can see here, beloved brothers and sisters, how important it is. Any part of the African continent that has 1/6 of the population of the entire continent is a very, very important strategic entity on the sub-entity on the African continent. Indigenous languages, the main indigenous languages are Yoruba, Igbo, House of Fulani, but there are others. You have the Ijao, you have the Oguni, you have the Edo, and various others in Nigeria. The largest traditional nation is the House of Fulani, which is 30% of the African, of Nigeria. Yoruba, 15%. There are other sources that say 17%. And Igbo, there are sources that say 18%. This particular source says 15.2%. The economy is the 8th largest oil producing nation in the world. Minerals include coal, iron, ore, gold, uranium, tin, tantalum, and there are others like cocoa and other reserves. Beloved brothers and sisters, here are some of the indigenous pre-slavery civilizations and empires, cities, the Oyo Empire, Ife City, and Benin. And we know that the Nok civilization goes back 1500 years BC, and we see some of the accomplishments of that particular civilization. The Oyo civilization, the Oyo Empire was known to be very well organized. It was a very well organized administration with very advanced trading systems. The Ife city of Ife, Ile-Ife, was said by the Yoruba to be ordered by a city ordered by the creator, ordered by Olodumare. And again, amongst other things, iron smelting, pottery, and various other developments were taking place. I'm just running through. We know about Benin, the Benin civilization, and its very complex and advanced artifacts in Benin, the Benin bronze artifacts, and how coveted, globally coveted they are. So just to give us a small backdrop, so we know that we had advanced cities, advanced civilizations in that part of the African continent before Europeans began to invade, or before even Arabs began to invade. Brothers and sisters are invited to look further into those histories. In 1900, beloved, the Royal, so-called Royal Niger Company, known today as Unilever, had owned, think about this for a moment, had owned the region we call Nigeria today, or the area we call Nigeria today. And it was called then the Royal Niger Company Territory, or territories. Think about that for a moment. And then Britain purchased Nigeria, a whole nation, from a multinational corporation for 860,000, it says million there, 860,000 pounds. Think about that for a moment. The buying and selling a whole African nation, that means everything therein or thereon now belongs to Britain. Think about that, brothers and sisters. And remember, this is 1900, so 865,000 pounds would be worth somewhere in excess of 120 million in the present time. Nigeria was created, therefore, brothers and sisters, as a business requirement to supply goods and services for the United Kingdom. Let us bear this in mind as we move forward. Britain in its warped mentality, owns Nigeria because 1900, they paid money for the country. That same year, 1900, saw the birth of a very special African woman. Her name is Fumilayo Anikulapo Kuti, born on the 25th of October, 1900, who became an educator, Pan-Africanist and anti-colonialist and women's rights activist and a national hero. You'll hear more about her as we move along, beloved brothers and sisters. In 1914, we had the Nigeria amalgamation. British High Commissioner Frederick Lugard, you can see him on the left there, brothers and sisters, established a colony of Nigeria. Nigeria, the name was given by his then fiance. The name is irrelevant. Probably some pillar talk. Hey, darling, what do you think we should call this this country? I couldn't give a damn really, but I just call it nigger area. That's one of the explanations of how it came up, beloved brothers and sisters. And others say it was Niger area. Yeah, I wouldn't dismiss the farmer, you know. Oh, nigger area, that will do. That will do. But that might upset a few people. So it's probably best if we say Nigeria, the nigger area. No one will know what we mean. You can just imagine that kind of pillar talk, you know. They brought together these regions, the northern regions and southern regions, the west, the southwest, and the southeast, without regard to history, without regard to traditions, without regard to the sovereignty of the people, nothing. It was to facilitate the interests of Britain, and that was it. Northerners were favored for political leadership from the outset and placed over the Southerners. Southerners limited to managerial and executive roles. So from the outset, they started playing one group off against the other. I presume you can see the full screen, Sister Shani?
Let me take myself off mute. Yes, we can. Yes, we can, leader.
Good. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
In the 1920s and 30s, we had emerging anti-colonial movements led mainly by Yoruba and Igbo activists, including Mama Fumilayo, who we just saw, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Jaja Wachuku, and others. Albert Macaulay comes to mind. His name is not there, but he was one of the activists that emerged in the 20s and 30s, and there are many others. Many northerner elites were against the call for independence. They had entered into a relationship with the British, and they were happy to sell out as they were doing to the British and enjoy the privileges that were afforded to them in this colonial regime. Fumilayo, on the 15th of October in 1938, Mama Fumilayo Kuti gave birth to a son and named him Olufela Olusegun Kuti. Later on, he added Anikulapo to his name, meaning I carry death in my pouch, meaning it's another way of saying he conquered death. He was destined to rage against the evils of colonialism and neo-colonialism. He was a champion. So he was born on the 15th of October 1938. I'm sure he wasn't looking so big and strong at birth, but this is what he looked like later on. Tendai Mwari. The Fifth Pan-African Congress, beloved brothers and sisters, happened in 1945. And it is worth knowing that a number of Nigerians also attended. Obafemi Awolowo and Jaja Wachuku were present at that Fifth Pan-African Congress. That was a very important Congress in the historical evolution of our people, led by the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah and George Padmore. And the Congress had as its two main objects to liberate the entire African continent from colonial rule and to unite all African people of African descent living in the diaspora and on the continent of Africa. So this Pan-African Congress was concerned as much with Africans in the diaspora as they were with Africans on the continent. And we can see a picture here of some of the delegates at that conference. Oloye, which is defined by Nigerians as Chief Fumilayo, joins the anti-colonial delegation, an anti-colonial delegation which was sent to the UK. In fact, she was a founder member of an organization called the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, which later became a political party. But in 1947, she was one of a number of delegates who were sent to Britain to protest against a new constitution, that colonialist constitution that the British government wanted to unleash on the people of Nigeria. Moving quickly forward, we saw in the mid-1950s, the curse of Shell dawned on Nigeria. And we're talking about the Shell oil and gas company. Struck oil in Nigeria in the mid-1950s, 1956, to be exact. More about the despicable, wicked undertakings of that multinational corporation. Now we come to Nigeria's sham independence. We hear that Nigeria got independence on the 1st of October in 1960, courtesy of Britain, the most populous country in Africa, as we've said. And we've been through some of that stuff already, brothers and sisters, some of those particulars. It's worth noting that 85% of the land is regarded to be rich agriculturally, and it's also a very rich area for natural resources. And we understand that this is why the British are determined, not least because they paid money. They paid money, presuming to buy the whole nation and all the people therein. Just think about that mentality for a moment, brothers and sisters. And they were not prepared to give up what they felt they rightly owned and paid good money for the sake of Africans enjoying their own independence and the right to sovereignty. This is a British subject who was a colonial officer in Nigeria. And he became a whistleblower, spilling the beans of about the chicanery that the British government engaged in Nigeria to undermine its independence. He said a major proportion of the politicians who made Nigeria notorious for corruption after independence were selected by the British before independence. The politicians and leaders and men of eminence not chosen were often honest, trustworthy, and responsible people. Did you hear that, brothers and sisters? The people that they did not choose were the ones who were trustworthy and honest and responsible. The ones they chose were the ones who were inclined towards crookedness. The British needed people they could control. They sometimes selected crooks whom they knew they could control after independence. This is what was happening behind the scenes, while Nigerians and other Africans who were attuned to what was unfolding, what we thought was unfolding in Nigeria in terms of independence. This is what was really going on behind the scenes. So we contend that he contends that this was a prelude for Nigeria's ongoing coups, instabilities, wars, including the Biafra War in 1967 to 1970, which killed over 1 million people, and we will come to that in a minute. He was ordered to rig the elections, beloved brothers and sisters. He was ordered to rig the election. There was an election in 1956 and an election in 1960. He was ordered to rig those elections and he refused. And as a result of that, he was sacked, he was deported from Nigeria, and he was hounded, rendered unemployable, and suffered numerous assassination attempts. In fact, he said he was poisoned. And as a result of that, he never fully recovered. He nearly died, and he suffered some damage to his stomach that never healed. The British loved the North, he said, and arranged for 50% of the votes to be controlled by the Northern People's Congress, which was largely a creation of the British and hardly a normal party in any accepted sense. It was founded by the British. So the NPC, the National People's Congress, was founded and funded by the British, the most powerful political party that emerged during, as the nation approaches independence, was founded and funded by the British to do its bidding, not to liberate African people. Wow. He says because this independence was to some extent a sham. Well, I wouldn't say to some extent, it was an absolute sham. The North and the British would continue to rule. However, it was still possible that the two advanced and educated Southern parties would unite against the North. So it was necessary to keep them apart. Divide and rule, the old British device for creating conflict, was employed in a most brazen and cynical form to keep the Igbo and the Yoruba from working together in Nigeria. Time doesn't allow to go into all of the chicanery that unfolded, beloved brothers and sisters, but all kinds of stuff was done to separate the Igbo from the Northeast, from the Yoruba, predominantly the Igbo and the Yoruba, from working together to create a viable political force that would be the true voice and representation of the people of Nigeria. Harold Smith's words, brothers and sisters. We have here a map of Nigeria so we can have a picture of what the country looks like and what the division between the northern region and the western and eastern region, sometimes known as the southwest and southeast for obvious reasons. In fact, a fourth region was also forged, which was called the Midwest. If you can just imagine a region that was carved out in between the West and the East, it was called the Midwest. And that was to compound the division that the neo-colonial forces of Britain and their puppets in the North were doing. So what we saw at the dawning of independence was a British-style parliamentary governmental system. It was a government that was totally in control of the British. As we said, there was a coalition between the Northern People's Congress. Just hear the name, the Northern People's Congress, and the National Tendai. So we saw Prime Minister Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa became Prime Minister, and Nnamdi Azikiwe became ceremonial president. Here we have, brothers and sisters, the dominant party, National People's Party. They were in a relationship where they subordinated the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons. And then the action group from the West was made to be the official opposition. Deadly tribal hostilities ensued, beloved brothers and sisters. And this character who, if you hear him speak, he sounds more British than the British. He loved Britain. He loved white people. He loved the system of colonialism. Ahmadu Bello. Notice he has a title, Sir Ahmadu Bello. So he was knighted. That's not unimportant, beloved brothers and sisters. And he was a northern premier. He was a premier for the northern region. And he launched a scathing attack on the Igbos who were living in the north. The Igbos, he said, are more or less the type of people who want to dominate everybody. If they go to a village, a town, they want to monopolize everything in that area. If you put them in a labor camp as a laborer, and you know, he's being interviewed by BBC. And he's quite comfortable to say this about other Africans. These are Africans who come from the southern region of the country, who are living, some of them have been living in the north for years, married, some of them are married to northerners. Yeah. He says, put them in a labor camp as laborers, and they will want to emerge as headmen for the camp. And he goes on to announce a northern first policy, where they propose to employ only northerners. And if they can't get northerners, they get expatriates, meaning white people. Now, listen to the sickness, brothers and sisters. Your brothers and sisters from the south, your brothers and sisters from the south are dominating and domineering and want to take over and govern everything. You sit here in front of a white man, a white Englishman, who have colonized your nation for decades. And you sit there talking this rubbish and then saying to him, rather than taking an African from the south, we will take one of you, one of your people. The sickness, beloved brothers and sisters. And this was the premier of the north, the northern region. And so it's not surprising, beloved brothers and sisters, that a coup, and a bloody coup, occurred on the 15th of January, 1966. This was a serious and cruel stroke of misfortune for the entire nation in Nigeria. It was led by Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogu. Those who were assassinated included the Prime Minister, Tafawa Balewa, the Premier, who we just talked about, Ahmadu Bello, and the Premier Chief Samuel Akintola of the Western region were assassinated in that bloody coup. I'm going to try and move a little bit faster forward, beloved brothers and sisters. Major General Johnson Agui Ironsi was then installed as military head of state. This was the first military head of state in independent Nigeria. Then there was a second coup led by a group of northerners. Now, I should say that, that Major General Ironsi was from the south, and that the majority of those who were assassinated were from the north. And there were the majority of soldiers, 4 out of the 5 who led, were from the south. They were Igbos from the south. And so this was construed as an attack from southern soldiers on the northern administration. And so there was a reprisal on the 29th of July, 1966, where Major General Ironsi was assassinated. That was also another bloody coup. Think about the impact that this would have had on the entire nation in such a short space of time. Then we had Lieutenant Yakubu Gowon, should be spelled G-O-W-O-N, Yakubu Gowon, installed as military head of state. Thousands of Igbos were just massacred. Thousands of Igbos were slaughtered in the north. The figures range, the death toll range from 10,000 to 30,000 people could have died, and thousands more were injured. And as a result of that, over 1 million Igbos had to run from the north and return to their homelands in the south for safety. Colonel Chukwuemeka Ojukwu became general of the army and announced himself as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the south. He called Igbos to return home to their southern to the southern region. For their own safety. There was tension between North and South. There was a face-off between North and South. And then, beloved brothers and sisters, there was a meeting that was called in Ghana, Aburi, Ghana, to de-escalate the situation. Guess who chaired that meeting? Well, the military head of state. Who was the military head of state? You might remember the name Joseph Ankara. Joseph Ankara, who was now military head of state for Ghana, having led the toppling of Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah 10 months earlier in Ghana. He is the mediator in Ghana, trying to de-escalate a situation in Nigeria. Not only did this character, who is on record saying, declaring that his commitment is to the British who trained him. This African is on record saying his commitment is to the British who trained him. Wow. Before the Ghana debacle, he sided with a British general, General Alexander, in turning Ghanaian troops against Patrice Lumumba in the Congo. If we remember that part of my last presentation on Sister Shanice's show. The irony of it, General Ojukwu made these demands for greater political autonomy over the region, greater control over Southeast oil deposits, and restructuring of the Nigerian army to dissolve greater powers to the south. He left the meeting on the understanding that these demands were agreed by General Gowan, only to find that General Gowan failed to honor the accord and instead broke Nigeria's region up into smaller states. Not only did he break them up into smaller states and implemented a US-style federal system, he also reduced the autonomy. They had very little autonomy and control over the administrations. Colonel Chukwemeka Ojukwu declared a cessation of the eastern region and the establishment of the state of Biafra on the 30th of May, 1967. And General Gowan, who was under the instructions of the British government. Let us remember, beloved brothers and sisters, let us remember the army was controlled by the British. It was the same colonial army that they had trained well. Many of them trained at Sandhurst, yes, and other places in Britain. Many of them actually came to Britain for their training. Okay, so the army, as well as the leading political party, were in the pockets of the British government. So Gowan declared war, and that this is how the Biafra War came about. Many of us may have heard of the Biafra War, deadly war, and the second worst war on the African continent in terms of death toll and suffering. Millions, over 2 million people died. Most of them didn't die from gunshot wounds. Most of them died, brothers and sisters, from starvation, malnutrition, because the Nigerian government, under the instruction of the British government, imposed a blockade on the region. So food could not go in or out. Goods could not go in or out of the region. As I said, nearly 2 million people, between 1 million and 2 million people died. Over
my brother, just to say, I mean, the scale of the atrocities that happened during that time is almost unimaginable. And to think that it was allowed, you know, to escalate to that level, you know, millions of our people wiped out. And right. I think many of us who were alive during that time and saw the images of those starving children are still haunted until today by those images. My brother, I mean, what you're talking about and what you're sharing with us here today, and, you know, exposing the hidden hand that was manipulating all of this. I mean, if we can't learn from this as a people, you know, then matters can only, history will repeat itself. And as someone has pointed out in the chat, it's a country of over, and as you pointed out, of over 170 million people, yet, you know, a few people who have organized themselves under the British as political rulers, and a few people who have organized themselves as military rulers can destroy the lives of so many people. Such is the extent of the corruption of the system that we are governed under today. But let me allow you to continue, but feeling this presentation, my brother, feeling the hurt and the wounds.
Yes, my sister, give thanks, and please do feel free to intervene at any time. It is painful, but we need to know this, beloved brothers and sisters. We need to know how we come to be as we are and what we are. We need to understand that. We cannot understand the present unless we understand the past. Yes?
Indeed.
So, the 1970s saw the rise of Fela Kuti. Fela Kuti had been to the United States. He had actually been to Britain before, did some studying in Britain, been to the United States, started a band, do some touring, and also threw himself into the Black Power movement, or he was sucked into the vortex of the Black Power movement, where his consciousness was raised even higher. Now, this is remember, his mother was an activist, yeah? And so he was raised in a household of powerful activism. And so his mother gave him directions from a very young age. But when he went to America, it reinforced what he had learned from his mother. He started learning about Malcolm X, you know, etc. And he became a conscious musician extraordinaire, as we say here, fierce, uncompromising Pan-African activist, a vociferous opponent of Nigeria's neocolonial politrics. He condemned the militarization of Nigeria's and Africa's politics. That is something he always said was very deadly and very, very dangerous. But this was happening because the British, the colonial masters, so-called colonial masters, control these armies. This is what we have to understand. The armies were still in their control, and they were still manipulating and directing them from behind the scenes. He slammed corruption and openly and publicly named all of the corrupt elements that he knew about in Nigeria. He founded a commune, the Kalakuta commune, where he lived and practiced with his band, and people used to come and see him. He fed a lot of people there as well, and you know, it was like a social welfare center as well. People came for support. People came hungry. He would feed the hungry. He would support. His mother was there. She was a confidant. She had high status in the community, highly valued in the community, and his mother lived in the compound with him for quite some time. He also established a nightclub called The Shrine. Interesting name, The Shrine, because that was used for more than just playing music and entertaining. It was used to raise consciousness and to project a consciousness as regards African spirituality as well. Police frequently raided the commune, beat people up, arrest people, throw people in jail. And our brother Fela Kuti suffered that fate on many occasions. Third coup, 29th of July 1975, General Gowan removed while attending an OAU meeting in Uganda. General Murtala Mohammed becomes the new military head of state is a term I'm trying to remember. The new military head of state. And General Gowan publicly pledged his allegiance to the new government. Interesting. And then he went off to the UK, to the home of his masters. See? Went off to the UK, to the home of his masters to live and to study. General Murtala, then in the fourth coup, a bloody coup, General Murtala is assassinated, and it's led by Lieutenant Colonel Dinka, who after he assassinated Murtala Mohammed, he ran to the British High Commissioner, but the British High Commissioner turned his back on him. He thought that he was paving the way for General Gowan to come back as head of state. But embarrassed, it seems, the British High Commissioner by running to the High Commissioner straight after the assassination, it seems. And so the High Commissioner turned his back on him, and eventually he was arrested. They had to get rid of him because he became a liability. General Obasanjo takes over as head of state. Now, this is a very interesting character, beloved brothers and sisters. Some sources say that he was an asset for the CIA. Brothers and sisters can go and research that for themselves, but there are sources that suggest that he was a CIA asset or a CIA agent even. Don't worry. 1977, there was a deadly raid on this compound again, Fela Kuti's compound. Military forces, 1,000 soldiers descended on the compound.
My gosh.
1,000, and it was reported that General Obasanjo himself, with Major General Yaradua, who was his second in command, both were present, directing operations on the compound. Mass beatings and brutalization took place. Arrest of occupants, including Fela Kuti, and brothers and sisters. Mama Fumilayo, age 77, was beaten up and thrown off a top floor out of a top floor window.
Wow.
Somehow she survived it, but died 14 months later. She suffered severe injuries and died 14 months later of complications from those injuries. Civilian rule was restored when General Obasanjo had handed over power to Shehu Usman Shegari on the 1st of October in 1979. Fela and his wives on Obasanjo's last day in office brought a mock coffin and placed in front of the barracks where he lived, where Obasanjo lived, demonstrating and protesting the fact that Obasanjo, as head of state, General Obasanjo, was responsible for the murder of his mother. And he also wrote a song, Coffin for Head of State. The fifth coup on the 31st of December 1983 was led by General Muhammadu Buhari. Have we heard that name before, brothers and sisters? Muhammadu Buhari is the present president of Nigeria. You know, Fela Kuti had that song where he talk about soldier go, soldier come. That's what he used to call the Nigerian presidential system. Soldier go, soldier come. Soldier go, soldier come. So see another soldier go, soldier come, yeah? General Muhammadu Buhari, the new army general, who is now head of state, because I'm a big gun. And General Buhari imprisons Fela Kuti in 1984. Once again, Fela Kuti, a freedom fighter, a Pan-Africanist, is harassed, arrested, beaten up, brought before military tribunal, accused of smuggling currency out of the country, sentenced to 5 years in prison. Amnesty International said that this was a political prosecution. 20 months later, he was released, brothers and sisters. But people who were close to him, people who knew him, said he was not the same person. He was much quieter. His musical output had slowed down markedly, and that he would focus more on spiritual matters rather than political matters. You can imagine what they did to him over the 20-month period. I'm saying this, beloved, because we must understand people have suffered for our liberation. That's why we cannot squander it. Bloodless coup occurs again on the 27th of Mosiah, so-called August 1985, led by General Ibrahim Babangida. Beloved brothers and sisters, Rumors. One second. Second of Messiah, so-called August Fela Kuti dies. Rumors abounded as to the cause of his death, but those who knew him blamed the battering he took over the years, the broken bones he suffered, the broken ribs, the ruptured internal organs. We can see a picture of him here, brothers and sisters. This happened to him repeatedly. Fela Kuti said they beat the what's it, nuts it out of me, using the S word, beloved brothers and sisters. One observer said that they tore up every part of his body. When he saw Fela Kuti, after they'd finished with him, he said they tore up every part of his body. They hated him because he loved his people. And because he was standing up for his people, because he used his music to raise his people's consciousness and to galvanize his people against the wickedness of the enemy. This is what they did to our brother. This is what they did to our hero.
Wow. You know, I'm just thanking you, my brother, for making us aware, you know, of the suffering and the extent to which this brother actually stood up for his people. I'm very familiar with the name, but, you know, I have to hands up admit, I had no idea of the sacrifices that he was making through his music to communicate to the world what was happening, you know, in Nigeria there. And, you know, the succession of coups, the ongoing, you know, efforts to just keep that country in a destabilized state, because they know that where there's no peace, they can continue to plunder the oil and the resources out of that country. Because all that we're focusing, you know, we're focusing on all of the coups and the bloodbaths and the evil that's been happening in that country. But I'm sure round the back door, there's been a continuous flow of the resources coming out of that country. Wow.
Absolutely, because and that's why they do this, because people like Fela Kuti, Mama Fumilayo Kuti, are raising consciousness. They're raising the people's consciousness, and they're mobilizing the people to rise up against this continued oppression and exploitation. And so that's why they're so vicious in their response. You know, just going back very quickly to the Biafra War, for example, that was totally controlled by the British. What the Nigerian government did was purely on the instructions of the British. Wow. In fact, the war ended because Harold Wilson gave certain instructions to go on because an election was coming up. And the war had become so unpopular that he knew that it would destroy his political prospects. That was one of the key factors that ended that war. The French got in on it and started funding Biafra, not because they're concerned about the people of Biafra, but because the French companies, oil companies, also had interest in the oil in the Delta region. But let me just press on. I'll try and be as quick as I can. So here we have now, it says enters MKO Abiola, and that's Mahmoud Kashimowa Olawale Abiola. But he was known popularly as MKO. And he was a businessman, a philanthropist, a politician, an activist, and a multimillionaire, probably even a multi-billionaire. He was very, very wealthy. And he was known as we say here, as a philanthropist. He was known as someone who was concerned about the social well-being of the people of his community and would give to the needy in his community. He was an organizer of the first Pan-African Pan-African Conference on Reparations in Abuja in 1993, the 27th to the 29th of April. Brothers and sisters should know about this Abuja conference in 1993 that took place in Nigeria. He was one of the leading organizers and one of the leading funders of that conference, where he got the Organization of African Unity and African governments to get on board the reparations campaign and to agree that reparations should be made to Africans on the African continent and Africans throughout the diaspora for the enslavement and colonization of African people. And arising from that conference, Reparations Commission, it was directed that delegates should go to their respective countries and set up reparations commissions in their respective countries. So it was a very important conference. And as you can see, it was sponsored by a group of eminent persons and the Commission for Reparations of the Organization of African Unity. He decided to run for election on the 12th of June, 1993, and won the election. Observers said it was the freest and fairest election that had happened in Nigeria, and that he had won fair and square. However, and that he had wide support from across regions, across traditions, across religions. He had wide support. He was mobilizing people across the country. He ran on the platform of extricating Nigeria's economy from foreign powers and foreign institutions. He also criticized the militarization of Nigerian politics and said that that needed to come to an end. However, General Babangida refused to concede and nullified the outcome of the elections and would not stand down. Eventually, he relinquished relinquished his role as head of state, but passed it on to Chief Adekunle Shonekan, rather than the man who won the election. There's another coup, the seventh coup. Think about this, beloved. The seventh coup occurs on November 17, 1993, led by General Sani Abacha. There he is. MKO publicly declares himself the democratically elected president. The response of General Abacha was to send 200 police vehicles to arrest and imprison MKO for treason. Now think about it, 200 vehicles, there could be up to 1,000 police. Remember the amount of police that converged on the commune that arrested and beat Fela Kuti to a pulp, beat up his mother, his 77-year-old mother, and threw her out of a window to her death. Ken Saro-Wiwa, I hope brothers and sisters know this name. A writer, TV producer, environmental activist, founder member of the movement for the survival of the Oguni people, staunch campaign against Shell's massive contamination and pollution of the Oguni land and the Niger Delta as a whole through indiscriminate oil dumping. The situation was so bad, people were turning on their taps for water and oil was coming out of their taps. Oil was coming out of their taps.
Wow.
The effects of the contamination was of such that it created cancer agents. Cancer agents were found in the water. Oil, the contamination was so bad that acres of farmland were drenched in oil. People lost their farms. Rivers were contaminated with oil. You know, with people where people would fish, they couldn't fish anymore because oil was dumped in the water. And so Ken Saro-Wiwa and others decided, no, we're not taking any more of this. And he was determined. He didn't want the situation rectified. They no longer wanted the situation. They wanted Shell out of their country completely. And that's what their campaign was about. It was a very effective campaign that was costing Shell millions. This brother was a dynamic, charismatic brother. He mobilized thousands of people in his region. And what did Shell do? They bought off the Nigerian government, bought off the Nigerian army. And the Nigerian army was used by Shell. Shell had employed the Nigerian army to protect its interests. Thousands of our people were battered and bruised to protect Shell oil interests and to allow Shell to continue to contaminate our environment and pump oil into our water taps and give us cancer. The African army that is supposed to defend the African people was defending Shell.
You know,
think about it, brothers.
yeah, I mean, as we think about it, the wickedness of the system, you know, that we have and that is governing us is just, you know, so deeply, deeply shocking. Is that true? You know, we're approaching, you know, we're moving towards the top of the hour. I'd just like to bring in some of the comments from the audience, if that's okay with you.
Yes,
I'll quickly bounce a few in so we get their involvement here. So just want to thank everybody for their interaction. Shaka says the pollution is very bad to this day in River State. He said it makes me angry to see this devastation to the local areas. So, you know, what our brother's talking about, although he's looking back so on this slide to 1995, the impact is there until today. Super Black says, this is why the late, great Magufuli was removed. His autocracy would not be taking place under his rule. This sort of autocracy would not be taking place under his rule. I think he's going back to what we were saying about Tanzania and the abuse of the Maasai people there. A couple of people in the chat were saying, my brother leader, were thanking you for bringing this information that, you know, like myself, had no idea of this, you know, had no knowledge of this information, and says that, you know, it was deliberately being kept from us, that they'd heard of Fela Kuti, but, you know, Tuko Pamoja is saying, but didn't know the extent to which he sacrificed and he suffered. And I think that's been said by a few people in the chat, my brother. So you are bringing us, you know, knowledge that many of us, you know, were unaware of the details of. We thank you so much. Kinja is bringing a correction and saying that the Biafra War actually ended after Obafemi Awolowo, the then finance minister, changed the Nigerian currency from pounds to naira. Thus, Emeka Ojoruku Biafra went broke and couldn't fund the war any longer. So that seems to have been a factor in all of this as well. Let's see if we've got any questions or points. Again, never heard of Fela Kuti, but I bet he will never, but he'll never now forget Fela Kuti. I won't ever forget him either. Bob Marley's name is mentioned as well. More mention of brother Fela Kuti. And S. Smith is saying that they want it to look like we are the uncivilized ones whilst they are the ones in the background instigating the conflicts among us, knowing that it is believable to many. That is so true. There we have it, you know, brother leader. We see the images on the television, don't we? That they show us of the coups, of the bloodbaths, of the wars and the troubles. But here we have, you know, some insights from the presentation that you're delivering to us, it being clearly revealed, the hidden hand of the West and the role that they have been playing all along, you know, in undermining Nigeria, in creating the destabilization, managing the armies, directing the armies, instructing, you know, those who are involved in the wars, and controlling the politicians. It's a wicked system. Someone said in the chat, and where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Let me allow you to continue and maybe respond as you go along to any of the comments from the chat, please, Leader Bandaka.
Yeah, Tendai Moyari, give thanks and praises for all of those comments, and it's just good to know brothers and sisters are as engaged as those comments indicate. Sorry. Yeah, it's important that we know the names and the faces of those who have stood up and made tremendous sacrifices for the rest of us. And it is also important that we factor this into our analyses about the state and conditions of the African continent, because we will find that the forces of evil and wickedness that cause all of this suffering upon our people are still in existence. This is what we have to remember. And you will see in the conclusion exactly what I'm saying. So I'm going to try and wrap it up in 10 minutes. So let me press forward. As you can see there, our brother Sarawiwa was arrested and framed for a murder he did not do. He was arrested and framed and executed by hanging.
Oh my gosh.
He was one of the Oguni, known as the Oguni 9, who were arrested, framed, prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced to death for a crime that they did not commit.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. Will there come a day? Will there come a day when these people, you know, during the lifetime of those responsible, you know, when they will be held to account and be punished for their crimes?
Well, that is an act of justice that we will have to exact upon those who have perpetrated these crimes against us. And we can only do that from a position of power. But let me come back to that in a moment. We need to also know that thousands of people died throughout the 90s. This thing came to a head in Nigeria in the 90s. And I believe if my figures are not incorrect, in 1995 alone, I think it was somewhere in the region of 2,000 people who were killed as protesters against the shell onslaught in the Niger Delta. Now, let me move on. I should say I thought that the currency had changed after the Biafra War, just after the Biafra War. But
yeah, there is a comment in the chat to that effect as well, to say that it was the Naira was introduced 3 years after the war ended. So
that's my understanding, that it was after the war and not before the war. But it did have a devastating effect on the economy well, it was no longer Biafra, but it did have a devastating effect on the region for a number of different reasons. But Tendai Mwari. Death of General Abacha. General Abacha died suddenly in his presidential villa in Abuja on the 8th of June, 1998. His death is regarded by many to be very suspicious. General Abdul Salamani Abu Bakr becomes new military president. Now, brothers and sisters should know that Babangida, General Babangida, who was the person in office when MKO Abiola won the election, said that Abacha was supposed to have feigned this coup. It wasn't supposed to be a real coup. He was supposed to have feigned this coup in order to get Abiola out of the way. And then once he gets Abiola out of the way by imprisoning him as he did, then he was supposed to restore Babangida back to the position of head of state, but he didn't. It is believed that that is the reason why he died suddenly in very suspicious circumstances, because he did not obey his masters. This is interesting, brothers and sisters. MKO dies suddenly on the day he was due to be released from prison. So he's released from prison. He's to leave prison on the 7th of July. He is in a meeting with a US diplomat named Thomas Pickering and Susan Rice, and he collapses and dies shortly after drinking a cup of tea that was served to him by Susan Rice. We're almost there now, brothers and sisters. This man standing there with a self-pleasing smile is the same General Olusegun Obasanjo. I say with a self-pleasing smile. He becomes civilian president, beloved brothers and sisters. After Abiola, they could not go back to militarization. So what did they do? They put the generals in civies and say, we're now moving to civilian rule. So Obasanjo becomes civilian president from May 1999 to May 2007. We had between him and the present president, a president by the name of Yar'Adua, who died in office. Won't say much more about him, and whose brother was the general who went with Obasanjo to invade the compound of Fela Kuti and threw his mother out the window. So, and then there's Goodluck Jonathan. But the present president of Nigeria is this character, the one who had imprisoned Fela Kuti, beaten him up, imprisoned him, and mistreated him in such a way that when he came back out, everybody said he was not the same person. This is the man who presided over that. He is now the president of America, of Nigeria. Think about that for a moment, beloved. Think about that for a moment. And you wonder why the country can't go forward. This is still soldier go, soldier come. These are the same soldiers who slaughtered our people in the Biafra war. Every single one of them fought in the Biafra war. So these self-pleasing smiles that we see, smiles drenched in oceans of blood, African blood. None of them have lifted a gun in anger against any of Africa's invaders, any of Africa's exploiters, any of Africa's oppressors. They've only killed and maimed African. They've only shed African blood. They're trained to shed African blood, to protect their white masters. And this is what we close on. the martyred prophets of Nigeria anyway, the people who could have and would have made a difference. The people we have forgotten. The people we must now remember. The people from whom we must continue to draw inspiration and direction. The people whose spirits still cry out to us, asking us, what did I suffer and die for? When the spirit of Fela Kuti look at Nigeria and see at the helm of the government the same man who brutalized him, when he looks and sees the man who murdered his mother, who threw his mother out of a window, is being paraded around the world as one of the great leaders of the African continent. He's posing as representative of the African Union. They sent him the other day from the African Union to mediate in the crisis in Ethiopia, for example. Obasanjo. It's a joke. It's a joke, brothers and sisters. But here we are. Let us never forget them. Let us vindicate their suffering, so they would not have shed their blood in vain, so they would not have suffered the pain, the torture that they suffered in vain, because we have valued their legacy. And we are building on their legacy. And we are going to ensure that their blood has not been shed in vain. Let me close with the words of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Unite, organize now or perish. Rise, you mighty African people, for you can accomplish whatever you will. Rumbidzo kuna mwari Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. Tendai mwari.
Sorry, take myself off mute there. Tendai mwari. Wow. Leader Banzaka, we thank you so much for this deeply insightful presentation. The names of those heroes and sheroes of ours, will have to be added to the list of our greats, those, who sacrificed their life for their people. And, it's such a wicked system. It's such an evil system, that controls the continent, that controls Nigeria until today. Brother Leader, the half of what you've told us just hasn't been told in the way that you've delivered the presentation to us today. We are so misguided as a people. The narrative that we have been fed over the decades, as has been said in the chat, is one that, has had us pointing our fingers at our own people as if they're unable to govern themselves and manage their own affairs, when in fact, the reality is that we have been fed selected and elected individuals who have been handpicked by the West to do the dirty deeds of the West to the detriment of their own people and the potential advancement and development of that wonderful part of the continent. But let me bring in, we've got about 10 more minutes. Let me bring in some of the comments, less than that actually, 7 minutes from the chat. Knowledge is power, is clapping you. Yes, indeed, D. Francis, what a shame that Nigerians are so blind. Yes, so blind to what is actually happening. Also earlier on, it was mentioned in the chat about the gold deposit that has been discovered in Uganda, and they wanted some comment on that. And we talked quite a lot about money and how Nigeria was bought as a country with bits of colourful paper. And I'll say it again, what they call money, they have convinced all of us you know, that their colorful bits of paper, if you can stop sharing screen, please now, Leader Bandaka, so that we can bring you, bring us both back on screen. Thank you so much. As much as, you know, we want to see the faces, you know, we'll have to have that with the names as well underneath of those greats as well. And if I could have that, I'll definitely post that as the image for today's presentation. Yes, my brother, they've convinced us that their colorful bits of paper is worth more and is of more value than the oil, than the gold, and than the wealth that exists on Mama Africa. You know, what can you say to us, my brother, about this huge deception? Because, you know, as I say yesterday, you know, when we look back in history, we criticize our African ancestors who are said to have sold us out for trinkets. Well, are our future going to be criticizing us for selling our land and for selling our wealth, the bits of colorful pieces of paper that they have convinced us is of so much value?
Tenai Mwari, we have, because of the institutions that we have allowed to present as our educational institutions and our religious institutions and our social institutions and the media that we are exposed to, we are misinformed and we are miseducated, you know? And so we have to build the work that we do with the limited resources that we have are priceless, but we have to take this liberation fight onto the next level. We have to take it to higher levels. Go ahead.
Talk to us, brother leader, talk to us, you know, yes. How do we do that? What have we all en masse absolutely got to be doing to weaken, you know, the powers of this wicked evil system that is governing our lives and making the lives of so many of our people absolute hell?
Well, we have to understand that unity is not just a word, but it's a series of work that we have to do and ideas that we have to implement to make that happen, right? So we have to build systems and institutions that enable us to work and build together. We have to organize, as Papa Garvey says, we have to organize ourselves as a nation of people. So we as Africans here in the UK, we need to say now, we need to put, Papa Garvey says no race is free until it has a nation of its own system of government, its own order of society. So how do we start to put a system of government together? Yeah, we need to come together and start putting ideas as to how we establish a system of government. And once we have
just interject, my brother, because those in the chat that are asking for solutions and are saying, why do we spend so much time talking about the problems? Most of us are unaware of the extent to which, you know, these problems actually exist. And we can't arrive at solutions if we don't have a clear understanding of the problems. Now you understand the problems. It's for you to look in the mirror, and it's for you to do the work in your families, people, in your communities, towards bringing about the solutions that we need. Let's not look to others and point the finger to be the solution to the problems that we're talking about. Let's each and every one of us who have purpose, you know, be the ones who are contributing towards the solutions. Sorry for that, leader. Just needed to quickly interject there and to remind, you know, each and every one of us that we are part of the solution as well.
And that having a proper analysis of the problem is part of the problem solving.
Absolutely.
You don't solve a problem by jumping in the abstract to solutions. You solve a problem by examining what the problem is. So you are clear about what the problem is, and then you start to talk about what the solutions might be. Absolutely. And as I started to say, the solution is nation building. We have to be engaged in the process of nation building. We have got to get our heads together around how we set up a system of government, a system where we govern ourselves, we organize our lives so that we have a body, a national body that represents our interests and promotes our interests. And we're all going to sign up to that process, and we're all going to buy into the process. I wonder if brothers and sisters understand what I'm saying here, right?
Words of Marcus Messiah Garvey comes to mind. Organize, organize, organize.
Right.
We've all got to belong to organizations. We've all got to be part of a movement. Every single one of us, every family have to be part of an organization and part of a movement at a political level, an economic level, and at a social level.
And then the organizations have to work more closely together. The organizations have to join up the dots. Organizations have to come together and say, now, how can we organize ourselves into a national representative body that promotes and preserves and protects the interests of our people? If you look in other communities, that is what they're doing. That's what they do. They have their national bodies that represent them. And when issues arise affecting those communities, it's the representatives that they put in place that speaks on their behalf. We have got to have those systems in place.
Absolutely. We're now at the top of the hour. Leader Bandaka, as always, you know, we could double the amount of time that we spend hearing from you. Wow, wow, wow. Let me allow you to close, please, Brother Leader. Let me allow you, a few more minutes just to close today's session. But I just have to say, as always, deeply, deeply insightful, so much knowledge, so much information. The depth of your analysis of the problems and the situation that we are faced with, is unprecedented, really. And as you say, we have to have a correct analysis of the problems that we're faced before, we're in a position, in a situation where we can do the works that's needed towards solving these problems. And we thank you, as always, for the works. But let me give you a few moments to close, please, my leader.
Yeah, Tendai Mwari. Well, first of all, Tatenda, Medasi Papa, Sante Sana, Oshe. Give thanks to you, Sister Shanice, for inviting me again to make this presentation. I consider it to be very, very important that we understand who are the people that have stood up for us, who are the people who have been martyred in the cause of our liberation. How was it done? Yeah. So that we can strengthen our resolve and strengthen our ability to protect those who stand up and speak out and represent us and our interests. We have got to, as the saying in the song goes, how long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? If we want our leaders to stand firm, if we want our leaders to be progressive, if we want our leaders to be honest and truthful, if we want our leaders to be courageous and bold, are we prepared to protect them? Do we have systems in place? Look how we just lost Magufuli, the tremendous work that he was doing. And the discussion in our communities was just weak as far as I'm concerned. That's gone on the back burners too quickly. We stopped talking about Magufuli too quickly, And so people make these big sacrifices, they suffer for it, they die and we forget them. And sometimes they don't even die, we still forget them. So that's why we do this, my sister. We have got to bring this back to the fore and put this back into the minds of our people, And brothers and sisters, we need to develop a clear understanding of what it means to build a nation. You can build a nation in an alien environment. The nation begins in the mind of the people.
Yes.
Sovereignty begins in the mind of the people. You think it, you see it, and you start organizing for it. The more we unite and put systems in place, the stronger we become.
Mm-hmm.
The stronger we are, the less vulnerable we are to the excesses of our oppressors. This is what we have to remember. And I'll just say this very quickly before I close. I'm talking about, this is the effort that we made a few years ago. We need an effort like this. This is a constitution that was drafted for the National African People's Parliament that was in an interim stage. We had a draft constitution that was sent out for public consultation towards establishing this national body. We need something like this. Your constitution is the rules that govern your organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
We also had a manifesto, a draft manifesto. It wasn't completed, a draft manifesto. Your manifesto is your operational principles that is fleshed out in your manifesto. 21 policy areas about how we build institutions, how we go about building. That is towards solution, right? We also have this document called Leadership Protocols, looking at some of the ideas around how we can implement the kind of leadership structures that would be representative, that would be effective, and that would be accessible to our people. What I'm saying is, attempts have been made at problem solving. Attempts have been made, and the templates are there that we can pick up and build on it and restore it. If we made a mistake before, we can learn from that mistake and correct that mistake and make these things happen. But unless we are able, and you mentioned Papa Garvey, Sister Shanice, he gave us the black print, and that's what his organization did. They organized for nation building, because it is through nation building that we are able to secure the power that we need to protect our interests. So, brothers and sisters, that is my word of advice to all of us. Every single one of us should be going to bed thinking, what can I do to help to bring about this nation, an African? What can I do to help my people in this part of the world to organize a system of governance, a self-governance, where we have our own departments that can deal with education, that can deal with healthcare, that can deal with housing, that can deal with science and technological development. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. But we have to have a system of governance. So I close again, brothers and sisters, with the words of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Messiah Garvey, the man who gave us the black print for liberation and showed us how to build a nation in exile, a provisional government. He showed us how to do it. That template is there. The INAP template is there. And there may be other templates. Yeah. Kwame Nkrumah, thank you, sis, gave us a template. The Thomas Sankara. I remember all of those other templates flowed from the black print that Papa Garvey gave us. Yes. Because all of them were directly or indirectly inspired by Papa Garvey. So all we need to do is take them to hand, read them, and say, no, how can we implement this? And we have to be serious about it. So unite, organize now or perish. Rise, you mighty African people, for you can accomplish whatever you will. Rumbidso kunamwari ye Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, Tendai Mwari, Tendai Mwari. Thank you so much, Brother Leader Bandaka. To everybody in the chat, thank you so much for your contribution. You have now been given guidance towards the solution. It's for you to go and take those black prints, those blueprints, get copies of those constitutions to take within your organizations, and every single one of us need to be part of the solution and to be working within organizations that are aiming towards uplifting us as a nation of people, politically, economically, scientifically, socially, etc., etc. The power is within our hands. And as our brother said, it's important that we have the correct analysis so that we are in a position to know, to learn from our past experiences, to understand, understand how our enemy works, so that we can see the games that they tend to use, because they repeat themselves over and over again, so that we can see the works of the enemy that is at play, because we understand the games that they play and how they play those games. It's for us to, learn the tricks of the enemy so that we can, in our efforts to move forward, avoid, us falling into the same pits and traps again. So there's a huge amount of work to be done. As our brother was saying, the vast majority of that work has to do with changing the mindset of our people, because if our people were in their right mind, they would not be throwing our elders out of windows. They would not be, working in collusion with our enemies. If they were in their right mind, and if our people were in their right minds, they would be able to see, what the wicked ones among us were doing, and they would know what to do to those people as well. But until then, we have to be doing the works the best we can wherever we are in the world. But if we're all working towards the same objective, which is, towards the advancement and upliftment and development of us as a people on a multiplicity of levels, we can make a difference, and our futures will see the impact of our words. And so, because of time, family, we're going to love you and leave you. But, for those of you who would like to join us in a conversation and debate, please do use the link that I've given you for Saturday's community talk show on the Big G Galaxy Alfiri. The Sister Shanice show, or Sister Shanice will be the host on that community talk show on Saturday. And also you can use the same link to join Leader Bandaka and the Al-Qaeda Revivalist Movement. You can join them every Monday evening from 7 p.m. UK time via that link to the Galaxy Alfiri radio. So if you want to hear more from Leader Bandaka and his analysis of the issues that are impacting on us as a community, use that link that I've posted in the chat to join him and his team on a Monday evening. He has a phenomenal team. And if you want to engage in discussing some of the issues and solutions that we need to be putting in place as a people, then join me on Saturday for the community talk show. I post that show on alternate Saturdays. But for now, family, I look forward to you joining me on Saturday, joining Leader Bandaka on Monday evening, and then joining me after Leader Bandaka's show at 10 p.m. UK time, back here live on the Sister Shanice show on YouTube. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. And can I ask each and every one of you to at least share this video with family members and friends, because you're not going to get this information in any of the schools, any of the colleges, or any of the universities that your children, your young people are going to. As our brother says, we have to be able to have, an analysis from an African-centered perspective so that we are clear, as we're moving towards maybe even ourselves taking up positions of power, so that we are clear, of the potential for us to be manipulated in those positions, so that we have, a clear foresight about what we ought to be doing whilst in those positions. Leader Bandaka, as always, we thank you so much. To everyone in the audience for joining us again for another episode of Sister Shanice Show. We thank you so much. See you back here on Monday, then again next Wednesday, and we'll be getting a future date from Leader Bandaka again. We're trying to squeeze another date out of him, because this series absolutely must continue. Thank you so much, Leader. Thank you so much to the audience. More love, more power, more strength, and more voodoo. Sister Shanice.